Hello, lovely people, and thank you for coming out to join me for another episode of the Ninja Chickens podcast. This is a channel about knitting and fiber related arts, sometimes with a little bit of homesteading and homeschooling thrown in. My name's Maria, and you can find me on Instagram at ninja.chickens. You can find me on Ravelry as Ninja Chickens, and you can find me and all the show notes on ninjachickens.org. Thanks for joining me today. It's really nice to have you here. It is a chilly day out in the mountains of North Carolina. We've had a roller coaster spring of warm weather and cold weather and warm weather and cold weather. And it's just, I don't know, one of those chilly days where I felt like getting outside and recording a little something for you and chatting with you about the things I've been up to. So thanks for coming out. It's nice to have you here again. I think this is episode 32. I'm sitting near the chickens, so you may hear them in the background a little bit. And of course, the cats are out and about, and they usually make some appearance somewhere, running up a tree or being crazy. So yes, if you follow this podcast, you know that I spent a week in Edinburgh this past week, and we'll definitely be chatting about that towards the end. I wanted to go over a little bit of the things that I've been doing in knitting first, and then tell you a little bit of story about my journey. So first we'll start off with finished objects and works in progress, and then we'll move into my last week. I finished another square. I don't have it with me because I already mailed it. I finished the square for the Sister Survivor blanket project that Evelyn of the Thistle Hollow podcast is doing. And I sent her 3. And when I was in Edinburgh, 2 people came up and handed me little baggies full of squares to send with mine, which was amazing. I'm so excited about all the people that are participating in that. I think it will be easy for her now to get 155 squares. And if you're still hoping to participate, check out her podcast and her Instagram page, The Thistle Hollow, and you'll find lots of information about how to do it. It's super simple. It's a 5x5 square to go into a blanket that's going to be going to someone very special. My second finished object is something that I had not started yet when I saw you last, but Leaf, my son, he's 9 now, and when he was 2, I knit him what I call this tough man hat. It's called an quick and easy no felt mohawk, I think is what it's called, but I called it his tough man hat or his mohawk hat, and he's been wearing it ever since. It's his favorite hat. He loves it, and it's way too small for him. So he finally agreed to let me knit him another one, and he picked out the colors. He wanted it to be like diamond blue from Minecraft, of course, with a golden mohawk. So here it is. His tough man mohawk hat. He really likes it. He's been wearing it since I finished it. I cast this on, I guess I cast it on the plane, and it's super bulky yarn, so it's really easy and quick. I used Mirasol's Wuxia super bulky yarn, and I think this is the mallard colorway. And then I just had a bunch of Let Lopi from his sweater actually left over, golden yellow. And so there it is. You actually cast on by knitting 2 ear flaps, and then you join them in the round for the hat. And it's really easy to make. My husband actually has one too. So yep, that is my finished object. I have 2 whips, one of which you've seen before. It is my Dixon skirt for the Knit Your Bottoms knit along that's going on. That goes on through June of this year, June 1st, I believe. It's in the show notes. But it's anything that you would wear on your bottom half other than socks. So this is going to be my Dixon skirt. I've just finished the upper ribbing part, and I'm starting on the cable. This is what I've done to make it easier so that it does not slide down, because a ribbed skirt seems like it'd be pretty easy to slide down, especially with the weight of the yarn. So I did a 1x1 ribbing for 1 inch, and now I'm going to fold it over and put elastic on the inside to hold it up a little bit better. So there you go. I'm using a fern fiber yarn. that is a Rommeldale with a little bit of silk neps in it. And I'm knitting it on a much smaller needle. I think this is a 5. Yeah, this is a 5 at this point, a US 5. Just to get a nicer, more solid knit, because otherwise it just looked too open and loose. So that is one work in progress. And the other one you have not seen yet. Oh, there's a kitty. Which way? This way. So these are my shiitake logs. And for some reason, the cats like to sit on the shiitake logs and stare into the bushes. I think there is a mouse family or something back there. And sometimes I'll find all 3 of them just sitting there on the logs. You're so silly. Yes, so one of the things that Mars, who was my, Hey Brownberry, was my travel companion during the Edinburgh Yarn Festival, she and I wanted to have something that we could knit together kind of as a memory to bring back with us. And so I dyed I eco-printed a sock blank, and she dyed some yarn with pomegranate, and we combined them, and we are both knitting what's called the Foolproof Cowl by Louise Zass Bangham. And this is probably what I put the most yardage on, I think. You actually started off like a triangular shawl. So that's Phineas. She's out and running around. Oh, dusty, dirty. So this is Phineas. She's just coming over to say hi. She likes to jump over the fence and get out where all the good stuff is when they've munched down the greens in their area. Come on, let's go back. So this is the Foolproof Cowl. You start it like a triangular shawl, and then you work out from the sides. So I've worked a good bit on this side and put that now on its holder, and now I'm working this side. And then you'll connect them, and it'll be a long cowl, which I think is really cool. So these are the 2 yarns, let's see, yeah, that Mars and I dyed, and we're excited about this. It was a really good project for travel because it's mostly just knitting. There wasn't a lot of thinking. I could memorize the pattern and what I need to do next, and I could chat with people while I was doing it. So that is my other work in progress. So I'm still a little bit frazzled, I guess is the word, a little incoherent about Edinburgh Yarn Festival and all the things that went on. I know that there are a lot of you who weren't able to go. And I know that sometimes seeing all the pictures and the smiling faces and the things that people have bought can even make you feel a little sad that you weren't there or that you weren't part of it and you didn't participate. So what I am going to do is try to tell you the story of what happened for me and how it went, and hopefully bring you in a little bit to help you feel included. Because if it weren't for all the rest of you guys, for everybody out there being so invested in this community, then things like this wouldn't happen. Things like the yarn festivals wouldn't be such a big deal or such a wonderful thing to go to. So yeah, I hope this helps you feel included a little bit. All the things that I purchased and all the amazing, generous things that I received from people, I will be highlighting in my Instagram feed over the next few weeks, just so that it's not me showing all the things. I think that would make it a really long episode and kind of boring for you guys. So I'll show you a few things that I purchased today, of course, and I want to just tell you more about how it was. So the first thing was that we were supposed to leave on Tuesday, almost 2 weeks ago now. And there was another, at this time, the third massive nor'easter or northern easterly storm coming in to the northeast of the States, which is exactly where I was supposed to fly through. So I knew that flights were going to get canceled. There just wasn't any way that flights would be going with all the snow they were expecting. So there was a lot of hubbub trying to get flights changed and get everything arranged. And it ended up that we went, I flew over, like I said, Hey Brown Berry, Mars of Hey Brown Berry and I traveled over together. And we actually ended up going a day early. Usually you wait until things are canceled and then they send you late. But we were able to get one of our flights scheduled a day early. And when we got to the airport, we let them know, hey, we're here. Our next flight is supposed to go tomorrow, but it's probably not going to. And they said, oh, sure, we'll put you on the one in a couple hours. So we ended up going over a day early. And our Airbnb hostess was gracious to host us a day early. So that was amazing because that meant we had a day to settle in, get some groceries, and just, recuperate from the travel. The first official day of our travels was Wednesday, and we met up with some other amazing people. So first, let me just say, if any of you have ever been to a festival like this, you know how it is to go and meet up with people who you've probably met through Ravelry or Instagram and never actually met in real life. And in the experiences that I've had, it's been really, really amazing. Though I've never met up with someone and thought, wow, they are not who I expected them to be. It's always been even better, where you just click and you feel like you've been old friends from camp, since you were a kid. And so it felt really, really good. And I wish I'd had a chance to talk to more people because I felt like some of the conversations were shorter, many of the conversations were shorter than I would have liked them to have been. But yeah, it's kind of not very describable in words. If you have never done anything like that, I would highly encourage it. Take a look at the festivals around you or the ones that you might be able to go to and take a chance and, reach out and see if there's anyone else who's going that you might know that you can meet up with, because we're a really amazing community. I've never been a part of a community like this that feels as supportive or as cohesive or as friendly. And I think it's a pretty special thing. So yes, the first Wednesday that we were there, we hiked from the middle of the city up to what's called Arthur's Seat. And after traveling for a while, having come from this and traveling through big airports and then being in the middle of Edinburgh, I was a little overwhelmed. There was a lot of noise and a lot of people. And so we walked through the middle of the city to get to our little trail on Arthur's Seat, which is just outside of the city of Edinburgh. And there was a protest going on at Parliament, and there were a lot of people. And we walked through a parking lot and up this little trail in between these two, they're not really mountains, hills, I guess. And it just went quiet. All you could hear was the breeze and the couple of friends around you talking. And it was so peaceful. And, right over the hill, there's the city of Edinburgh. But what an amazing place to have just outside the city to go and visit. There were lots of people walking their dogs and other tourists walking around. And there was a group of, about 8 of us. Grace of Babel's Traveling Yarns and Vanna Willamille on Instagram. She kind of coordinated it. She had been to college in Edinburgh, so she knew the city really well, and she was like our historical tour guide. She told us all these little things about the area and what we were seeing. And one of the things that I had mentioned to her is how much a connection there feels like, especially with the Highland Mountains of Scotland and the mountains that I live in, and how similar they feel. It's not as rainy here, but there's still just this, this lush greenness. And granted, all the trees have been cut down from up there, but everything feels very similar. And I mentioned how, what a coincidence it is that there is a huge Scotch-Irish population in this area. And maybe that was because it seemed so much like home. And she said, well, that's because they're the same mountains. And I thought, what? What are you talking about? They're the same mountains. Turns out, and granted, this is millions of years ago, but I printed this out because I wanted to read this to you. Thank you, Grace, for this snippet of knowledge. The Central Pangaean Mountains were an extensive northeast-southwest trending mountain range in the central portion of the supercontinent Pangaea during the Triassic period. So before that period, it was the supercontinents of Laurussia and Gondwana crashed together, and when they crashed together, they formed a mountain range. That those continents and a few others became the large continent of Pangaea, which was millions of years ago during the Triassic period, and then those continents moved and formed, what we have now today. When those continents separated, so that mountain range was called, the Central Pangaean Mountain Range. When Pangaea separated and the continents started drifting apart, those mountains became the Appalachian Mountains and the Scottish Highland Mountains and the Little Atlas Mountains of Morocco in Africa. So the Pangaean Mountains separated into 3 separate areas, of which my mountains and the Highlands are from the same mountain range, which I think is really, really cool. I had no idea. I never knew that. I always just heard that these were some of the oldest mountains in the world. And they are, along with the Scottish Highlands, which is super cool. And yeah, okay, so in millions of years, the flora and the fauna can change and all of that. But, maybe that's why so many people from this area feel such a connection to that area of Scotland. I just thought that was really cool. So we're in the same mountains, basically, many, miles away. So there's a little fact for you. Yes, so we took the walk up Arthur's Seat. It was steep, it was windy, it was chilly, but it was really beautiful. When you get up to the top, it's super, super windy. That kind of windy where you feel like if you step the wrong way, you're going to get blown over. But the view was just beautiful. You could see the ocean, you could see the city, you could see some old ruins. So we had a really lovely time doing that. The next day was the start of the festival. It was Thursday, Friday, and Saturday with a special edition on Sunday that they added. And let me just say a little something about the Edinburgh Yarn Festival that became very apparent to me while I was there. I've been to 2 really big festivals now and a bunch of smaller ones. The SAF Festival here, which is the Southeastern Animal Fiber Fair, and Maryland Sheep and Wool. And I love them both. They're great festivals, but the biggest thing that I noticed, sorry, that's Phineas, about the Edinburgh Yarn Festival that I felt like really makes it work is that they cater to the knitters, to the people there. There's an amazing display of vendors, yes, but there's also 2 massive rooms with tables and chairs. The podcasting lounge had couches, 3 areas where you could get drinks and snacks, along with the classes and the vendors. So you go in the morning and you just stay all day long because you can go in, grab something to eat, come back and knit for a while, go back, look at some yarn, come back and knit for a while. It's a place you wanted to hang out and be. Whereas the other festival that I've been to, they will have sheep and maybe shows and stuff like that with the animals. And Edinburgh Yarn Festival didn't have that because it's in the middle of the city. So you might get more farm-related things at the other festivals, but I don't remember there being a real good place to just sit and hang out at Maryland Sheep and Wool. So when you were done, you left, especially if the weather was bad. If it wasn't, you could throw out a blanket or something. And that's the same thing with SAF. It's at the agricultural center, and so you get the sheep, you get the dog shows, you get lots of classes, lots of vendors, a small amount of food, but there's really no place to just be. So you go for a couple hours and then you leave. So I think that really made the festival because you felt like you wanted to stay, you felt welcomed, And you got to just hang out and be with your fiber obsessed friends, because we all were. Everybody was so excited to be there. So, so a big thank you to Mika and Joe for setting it up that way, because it really made it a lot more welcoming. So the vendors were amazing. I did not actually spend a whole lot of time in the vendor area. I have a really big yarn stash and I didn't want to get too much. I'll show you one thing that I got right now, just because it's pretty and I want to show it off. The next project that I was wanting to cast on is the Maya Mamaluker shorts or bloomers for the Knit Your Bottoms cow. And these are the colors I was looking for. So these are both blacker yarns. This is Samite and this is Samite and this is Tamar. And this one is wool and silk, woolen spun, and this one is a luster blend of 100% wool that's worsted spun. But I still think they're going to go just great together. I'm going to make this the main body of the shorts, and then this will be the ribbing of the waist and the legs. And I put it in this bag. I got 2 of these, and I have to show them to you because they just make me laugh. This project bag is guarded by an alpaca called Boo. He is neither large nor fierce. He does, however, specialize in mind control, and his preferred form of revenge is the slow kind. So put the bag down and run. Run now, and run fast, and don't look back. These are just too silly. And then I got this other one. This is a place where I like to keep the things I need very, very much. They're watched over by this baby alpaca. She is fluffy and harmless, but her friend Big Willie spits like a camel and kicks like a mule. I got these at a vendor booth called Temporary Measure, and I got them on the last day. I was done. I'd just gotten a few skeins of yarn, and I will be showing you those on my Instagram feed, I think, over the next few weeks, all the beautiful things that I've been gifted and that I bought. But I saw someone else with one of those bags, and I had to go back and get some, and I did get one for a podcaster prize. So next time I have a giveaway, it might be one of the prizes. So let's see. Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, they're just a jumble of laughs and great conversations. I got to see people that I've known for years now that I've never met in real life, and they were just as amazing as I thought they would be. And the hugs were great, and the conversation was great. And yeah, Friday night had a knit night with lots of yummy food, and most of us didn't knit. We walked around and talked with people. Friday, I went to go see the Kate Davies talk. She had one on Friday and one on Saturday, and I knew she had a new book coming out, but I didn't really know what it was about. It was an amazing talk. She's an amazing woman. The talk was about how she was raised in a creative family, and they did with what they had available and made use of all their resources, and how when she was only 36, she had a massive stroke, and then how it affected her life and how she moved forward. It was really, really amazing. The book is coming out in May, I believe, so I'll definitely be getting it. It's called Handy Woman, and it sounds like a great, I guess, an autobiography. It sounds like a great story. Then Friday night, there was what's called the Ceilidh, which is kind of like a square dance or contra dance, if you know what those are. A really great Irish band, and a really great Scottish band. And they would tell you, here are the basic moves you're going to do, play the music, and everybody would dance those same moves over and over again. And it was a lot of fun to watch. I didn't do any dancing. I was pretty tired, and the floor was pretty packed with people. So I watched and did some filming and laughed a lot.
One more important rule for this evening is that you make lots of noise. So lots of... Yeah! Yes! After 4. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, go!
On Sunday, there was something new that they called Meet the Shepherdess, and that was 12 vendors. It was much smaller. 12 vendors who take the product from start to finish. So they have the farms, they raise the sheep, they shear the sheep, they create the yarn or the fiber. And that was a lot of fun. My friend Amanda and her husband Alberto, they were there. They were there for the whole festival, which was really nice. They're the family that I stayed with after Maryland Sheep and Wool last year, and they own Prado de Lana. And so that was a lot of fun to see them overseas. I hadn't seen her since last May. They were there, and then there were some other vendors with a lot of breed-specific wool and local farmers. So that was a nice treat. Some of the festivals you go to, there are a lot of well-known indie dyers that you may even see at the same at festival after festival, because they travel a lot of the festival circuit. I felt like this festival had, of course, it was a European festival, so there's going to be a lot of people that I didn't know or that I've never seen before at a festival. But it felt like a really wide variety of different types of yarns, from breed-specific to indie dyed to popular store brands. And there were books and there were notions and really everything you need, lots of project bags. So that was really nice that there was a big array of things. Of course, in the conversation that I had with people over the weekend, there was a good bit of talk about superwash yarns and how people were feeling about the superwash and buying non-superwash and all that stuff. And one thing, I was speaking with Andrew of Fruity Knitting on Sunday, and he mentioned something about, the history of superwash and how we wouldn't be here if it weren't for superwash. And that got me, just like Grace's comment about the mountains, that got me thinking, I need to do a little more research. So I did, and I found out some really interesting things that have never, for me anyway, I have never heard talked about. And I think it's important to bring up. And, I speak a lot towards the environmental impact of superwash yarns and how I would like to start using just bringing in non-superwash. And that's certainly a choice that we can all make. There are so many things in this world that can be done better for the environment, right? We can only do so many things personally. So we all have to make our own choices in what's important to us, right? I still drive a car. I know that a car has impact on the environment, but I still need to get from my house to my things. And I am not at the moment willing to move to community where I can walk to everything. I have land, I have a space, I have a home, I need a car to get around. And that's a choice I have to make. And I know it's not great for the environment. But I also know that the history of the car has changed our world. The invention of the car has changed our world. The same is true for superwash. So I did a little bit of research, and I think this is an important conversation to have, because it's not as easy to just say, oh, superwash is awful. They use chlorine and they use plastics and you should never do it. It's definitely your choice if you don't want to. And I'm choosing not to right now. However, here's where it comes from. Around the time of World War II, wool took a nosedive, especially in the United States, because synthetic yarns had been invented, and more were being invented. They were cheaper and easier to produce, and cotton was becoming mechanized over the next few decades, which meant it was cheaper to harvest cotton, cheaper to produce it. So wool became this expensive fiber that wasn't as needed anymore. Wool farmers were having a hard time. The number of sheep in the United States plummeted. I think it was like 1/10 of what it used to be before the 40s. And it wasn't until the 1970s, when superwash was invented, that wool started getting popular again. Because wool, which is so, it's flame resistant, right? Whereas the synthetic fibers are not. And especially for the military, who liked wool but was going towards the synthetic fibers, if there was any fire or if something was going on where they were near heat, the synthetic fibers melted and dripped and caused more injury, whereas wool did not. But the wool was harder to deal with because it was more expensive and it was harder to clean. Well, when superwash came around, it made it possible for the military to use wool again because it was easy. It was easier for them to clean it. And, well, okay, let me step back. I had said a few episodes ago that superwash was not produced in the United States. It wasn't until 2011. 2011. So we would gather all the wool and send it to the UK and China to have it processed and then send it back. So massive carbon footprint to produce the superwash wool after the 70s. It wasn't until, let me see, I think I have it written down. Yeah, so the military wanted everything if possible to be produced in the United States from start to finish for the clothing, the buttons, the things that they were buying as a way to support the US. In 2011, the Berry Amendment, an extension to the Berry Amendment, was passed, which mandated that all American military apparel must be made in the US. That meant that we couldn't send our wool overseas. So superwashing equipment was sent to a place in Jamestown, South Carolina. I believe it's pronounced Chargers Wool USA, and where they started producing superwash yarn. So we do have a superwash facility in the United States, and they have enough land to have their own water processing plant so that they can try and clean everything before it goes back into the water system. So the fact that we could now get superwash for the military, and the military was a massive buyer of wool, and the fact that now with superwash yarns, it was more possible for indie dyers to create what they're creating. And think about in the last 10, 15 years, what you've seen go on in the yarn community, where it's not just here's a solid from a big company. There are now indie dyers, thousands of indie dyers who are able to do what they're doing because of superwash yarn. It is not easy to do that type of dyeing on non-superwash yarn. You can, but it's not that easy. It felts more easily. It's a much slower process. It's a much more expensive process. So the superwash yarn for the military, superwash fiber for the military, not just yarn, but weavings and stuff like that, as well as for the yarn industry, for indie dyers, really brought wool back into the picture again in the last, 30 years. When I read some of this, I thought, I don't know if we would be here the way we are today if it weren't for the invention of superwash yarn. Now, yes, it is a toxic process, but because of that process, I'm here talking to you today. I don't know if there hadn't been this bloom in small yarn, for the knitting industry, the small yarn creators and the indie dyers, as well as for, we're just a drop in the bucket when it comes to what wool is used for. But when you think about all those things that, I think the military buys 20% of the wool clip in the United States. That's a lot. So it's not as black and white as saying superwash bad, non-superwash good. Yes, we still have to make that choice. Is this something we want to continue to feed into? Because now there's a growing industry of ecological superwash yarns, and we can think about how to support those local farmers, the small farmers, and the wool industry to continue to help it grow, while trying to find alternatives that are more environmentally friendly, right? I still drive a car, but I'm going to try and drive a car that has a better gas mileage. And maybe next time I can get an electric car and charge it on a solar panel. So I guess what I'm trying to say is, whenever we're adamant about things in in any way, this is the way to do it. This is how you should. This is the best. We have to take a step back and see what it is, where it all comes from. You know, what's the history in what we're talking about? How did this discussion even develop? So this is something that I'd never even heard of before last week. And, oops, sorry, there's a cat on the computer. I'd never even heard of it before last week, and I thought it was really important to bring to light. And you can do with the information what you choose, but it's definitely a discussion that I think needs to be continued. My choice is still going to be to try and use non-superwash yarns, but at the same time, I'll continue with education. I'll continue to try to support local farmers and small farms and the wool industry in whatever way I can. So yeah, so I wanted to thank Pigeon Roof Studios .com. She had a really interesting article about superwash that got me searching even more into where everything happens. Sorry, not where everything happens, but how everything had happened, and the history of superwash and the history of synthetic fibers and all of that stuff. So yeah, I think that's it. I just want to make sure I'd covered all my notes. Yes, so I had been talking about Edinburgh Yarn Festival. The last 2 days that Marcy and I were there, Monday and Tuesday, the festival had ended. Most people had gone home, and we decided to spend a couple extra days exploring around. We didn't want to go all that way and not see a little bit of Edinburgh. So on Monday, weather-wise, the first day we were there, it was chilly, it was windy, it was overcast, but it was totally doable. We had our jackets on, we were fine. The 4 days, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday of the festival were miserable. Cold, rainy, snowy, windy. You did not want to be outside. And luckily, we were all inside, which was perfect. The 2 days after the festival, when we wanted to be outside, it got sunny and beautiful. It was perfect. The weather cooperated in every way. On Monday, we walked into town and we went to go to a place called Mary King's Close and take a tour. So a close is kind of like a little street or an alleyway, and houses would let out onto the close, and sometimes there'd be small markets there. And this close was one that had, well, they'd be named after the famous people or the high people of that time. And Mary King was one of the prominent people who lived on this close. At the peak, this close had over 700 people living on it, all tossing out their buckets of waste at 7 a.m. and 10 p.m. Because they didn't know any better about germs and where the waste should go, and it must have stunk. But the story of this close was just you got to walk through some of the houses, some of the old rooms, walk up that alley, which is now built over, so it all feels like it's underground, but buildings have been built on top of this. And to hear about how the plague affected it because of the people living so close and them not understanding how germs worked and thinking it was all about vapors in the air. So they would wear these long, crazy masks with herbs stuck in the tip of the nose. I don't know if you've ever seen those, people wearing all black and then this black mask with this big long, that looks like a raven nose or something. And they would put herbs in there thinking that that would help to cure the vapors. And really what happened was those people who would wear these, leather jackets and the long masks wouldn't get bit by the fleas that were carrying the plague as much. And so that's one of the reasons why they survived. Oh my goodness. Can you see him? Oh, what a crazy cat. They do this stuff when I'm out here just to get your attention. They like have their little antics going on. He's gonna come, there he goes, down the stairs and up the tree. He's such a nut. Anyway, so yeah, we got to learn a bit about the plague and the bubonic versus the pneumonic plague and how it was passed, and a bit about the people who lived there. So that was really cool. Then we walked over to Victoria Street, which I also discovered something new was the inspiration for Diagon Alley in J.K. Rowling's Harry Potter. And it's a really cool street that kind of curves down and around the corner. And if you look, there are a bunch of really pretty doorways with shops and stuff on that street. And I can see how that kind of, I don't know, it felt like a mobile street, if that makes sense, because it draws your eye to the curve, how that could become inspiration for Diagon Alley. So that was really neat to walk down. It was a fairly short day on Monday. We were pretty tired, and so we went back and we relaxed, put our feet up. And then the next day we decided to go take a walk on the Leith River. Edinburgh is right on the ocean, which for some reason still confuses me. I don't know why I picture this big city and I don't expect to hear seagulls and smell sea breezes. But it's right there, and there's a river called the Leith, Leith, that runs right past the city and off to the ocean. And you can take a walk on a little walkway next to the river. So we did that, and it was beautiful. The sun shone through the trees, and all we heard was the water sometimes and the birds, and it was super quiet, but we could take a couple steps off the path and be right back in the city. It was a really nice way to end the trip. I am hoping to go back next year. It was a wonderful place to see people from all around the world. There were friends that I had met up with from Australia and Sweden and Norway and Denmark and Germany and Switzerland and just everywhere. So if you get a chance, I would highly recommend it. If you can't get to Edinburgh, get to any yarn festival, even the super small ones where you can just meet people who are super interested in the same things that you are, because and reach out and say hi, because this community is massive in one way and super small in another, in that we all seem to be supportive of each other. So, and in ending that, I want to say thank you so much to everyone who came up to say hi, who chatted with me about the podcast and came to give me hugs. It was just such a great feeling, and I appreciate it. So yes, I think that's it. Like I said, I got some beautiful yarns, some amazing mitten blockers, lotions, bags, all kinds of fabulous stuff. But I'm going to highlight those on the Instagram feed over the next couple of weeks so you can see pretty pictures and learn more about what they are. And of course, anytime I use any of those yarns or bags, I will let you know where it came from so you can see. And it looks like Phineas is coming back over and maybe finally wants to go inside. So have a great couple of weeks. Maybe I'll have my shorts casted on by the next time I see you. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. It's Sunday right now for me, so I hope you're putting your feet up and having some tea or coffee and getting a little bit of downtime. Talk to you soon.